Hi again then guys, and so we've got another updated Le Mans prototype tune for you today, and this time it's for a car which most people don't seem to give that much credit in terms of top speed, but it's actually a lot better than you might think. It's the Audi R18 diesel. So you want your racing soft tyres. For suspension, again very similar to the other prototypes, low ride height at the rear, 10mm higher at the front. Springs we've gone for 17 front and rear. For the dampers, we've got 1 on compression, 3 on extension, anti-roll as low as possible, camber and toe neutral. For the gearbox, you want an auto setting of 249, then we've gone for individual gears of 2.8, 1.8, 1275, 975, 775 and 600, with a final drive of 2.9. For the diff, same as always of course, low initial torque, especially with the diesel because they have so much torque. High acceleration and low braking. You want your high RPM turbo of course, and as always your downforce set to a minimum. Traction control you definitely want turned off. And so like I said, this is one of the kind of underappreciated Le Mans models from what I've seen. It's a pretty good track car, or it's a very good track car, but for top speed a lot of people underestimate it, and it's a lot quicker than you might think. Now obviously you'll have some idea of how quick it is because of the title of the video, but my existing tune for this car did around 253, 254 under its own power. With this updated tune it now does 262 under its own power. So again, an increase of like 8 miles per hour ish. As far as draft potential, you've got a decent amount, about 500 or 600 RPM, maybe a little bit more. So you should be able to slipstream up to probably 280-ish. I wouldn't have thought much more than that on this one. Obviously having a lower starting speed, you can't have as much draft. You can get this to draft up to around 300, but to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend it. This tune isn't really for this track. I mean, I've designed it for this track, but this is more for getting the kind of top speed that you'd need for just a Le Mans prototype in general, really, not necessarily to take on like 300 mph machines, because although it can do that in draft, it doesn't really have the cruising speed on its own to maintain that, whereas vehicles like the Pascalos or the Audi R10 or the Peugeot 908, they have plenty of speed anyway, whereas this car doesn't. This car has around a 30 mph disadvantage over, say, the R10 or the Peugeot. It's still not slow, but just not as quick as them. And considering how much less power it has, that's not surprising. It's kind of a shame that we can't tune it up higher because it has a lot of potential. Considering how much power it does have and how much performance it gets from that, it's a very strong performance car. And from what I understand, it's a reasonably popular one. I said at the start of the run that it's an underappreciated car, but to be specific, I was referring to top speed for that. It's a severely underappreciated top speed car. Most people assume it only does around 230, 240-ish, which is understandable. That's what the power would indicate. And kind of like the Toyota TS30 Hybrid, which is also faster than people give it credit for, it's one of these cars which kind of slips under the radar compared to the more obvious choices like the R10 or the Pascalo. On this track, obviously, I would never use this car because it has such a top speed disadvantage. But on a track like Le Mans, 260 is still fairly enough, really, to win a race. Especially if you're running Lasarte with the chicanes, or on other tracks like Route 7 or whatever. So, if you decide to use this tune, obviously I hope you find it helpful, and of course it's more competitive than it was before by, like I said, around 8 miles per hour. And if you're new to the channel, or just found this helpful or interesting in general, feel free to subscribe. I put out new top speed tunes like this every day. And as always, thanks for watching.